Canadian truckers blocking highway at U.S. border to protest COVID vaccine mandates. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen. These are the Canadian truckers against COVID mandates who are blocking all lanes of traffic to and from the United States. A sign on one of the truck reads, "Mandate freedom," and this has Canadians divided as to whether or not this is securing the supply chain or breaking it, as clashes over trucker vaccine mandate grows. And I'll remind you guys of this from November of last year, where 2.5 million truckers said that they will quit over the vaccine mandates as they warn President Biden about that if he does implement the mandates. Millions of truckers are balking at President Joe Biden's workplace vaccine mandate, which would be catastrophic for the nation's supply chain problem if it is enforced. An American Trucking Association's executive told House members this week. But little did they know, Biden is not the one they had to worry about, guys. In fact, the one who they had to worry about, who is actually going for this right now, is this man right here, Justin Trudeau. This is the guy who's just pulled the trigger on the supply chain, shutting down the Canadian border to unvaccinated truckers. As we see here, Trudeau is now playing a dangerous game, demanding U.S. truckers have shots. His mandate goes against advice of top food supply experts, and only 50 to 60% of U.S. truckers are vaccinated, according to an ATA estimate. Canada plans to start turning away unvaccinated U.S. truckers at the border this weekend, a move that threatens to upend the flow of everything from food to auto parts to building supplies between two of the world's largest trading partners, guys. And if this isn't enough of a sign to you that it's time to no longer be relying on the banks or the governments or the supply chains for that matter, or even on the grocery stores, we're going to need a self-sustainable garden moving forward, guys, because this should also be a warning sign to you. In Australia, supermarkets are now banning all shoppers who haven't been vaccinated against COVID. That's right, IGA chain has just announced that it will now ban unvaccinated shoppers at one of its stores, despite grocery shopping being classed as an essential service. And if you don't think that can happen here in Canada, guys, you better think again. So we're going to cover all of this and much, much more in today's video, guys. But before we do, I'd ask that you check me out here at subscribestar.com/pressfortruth. This is like a Patreon alternative to where you can sign up for a monthly reoccurring contribution, and these guys are far less likely to censor me like they are over at Patreon, guys. So if you do appreciate my efforts to continuously counter all the propaganda coming from the mainstream, please consider checking out Subscribestar. Links to that are located in the description below, guys. I'm going to need your help moving forward. I am currently being financially attacked. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's video, but I am going to need your help moving forward. So please check the links in the description to where you can find me on subscribestar.com/pressfortruth. All right, guys, we're going to start with this from November of last year, when the trucking industry essentially was warning the Biden administration that they will quit over this vaccine mandate, and that's quite significant when it's coming from them. We've tried to be very clear to the administration. I understand the logic behind it, but if you do this, these are the consequences, said ATA President Chris Spear. So if you're trying to solve the supply chain problem, you're actually compounding it and actually hurting the very problem that you are trying to fix. And that is exactly the situation. It is being compounded right now. We do have a problem in Canada with the supply chain. More and more people have been seeing less and less food on the shelves lately. And now this is going to be compounded with Trudeau's new mandate against the truckers in the United States. And I actually believe this is going to affect Canadians more so than it will for Americans. It's going to be bad either way for both. Let's face it, Canada and the U.S. deal a great amount of trade, especially with the amount of food that is crossing the border. But in the United States, there's a lot more kind of rural country life, whereas in Canada, I think it's somewhere around 80 or 90% of the Canadian population is just within kilometers of the U.S. border. Like in Canada, we're all packed into cities, compactly packed into cities. And It's the people in the city life who I think are going to be affected by this the most. In particular, the millennials who are living in the city, who haven't got the slightest clue about where their food comes from or what they would do in the event that the grocery store is out of milk or cheese or butter. Right now, they would just go to the other one. Well, what happens when that's out too? And then your third option and fourth and final fifth option are all out of it. Well, then what? Well, for people like myself who was, raised on being self-sufficient, as a young boy, I was taught how to, for example, slaughter a chicken, chop its head off, pluck off the feathers, scoop the guts out from the inside, prepare the bird to be eaten, break it down, and have it as a meal. I was taught to do the same thing with a fish, figure out how to catch one, cut it open, clean it out, get it prepared to have it for food. This is all taught to me as a very young guy. These were some of the chores that I had to do growing up, was to help slaughter the chickens and have them cleaned and prepared. Today's millennials wouldn't have the slightest clue how to do that. So I'm, going to be okay, and people like me are going to be okay, and especially because we're not, confined to this concrete and metal glass cages in compact cities. I still have the option of going to a local farmer in my area who they always set up, little booths. I already have friends who are selling the chickens and the microgreens and, other places I can go to. So, I'm going to be okay, but others are not, guys. And as I said, a large percentage of the Canadian population are tightly compacted into cities. And when we already have an issue with the supply chain and the amount of food being on the shelves, Justin Trudeau now launching this is just compounding this exponentially, and you better believe it's going to be bad, guys. Which we'll get back to and focus on, is why you need to concentrate on getting to the point of having a self-sustainable garden. But let's take a look at this, guys. Canada plans to start turning away unvaccinated truckers at the border this weekend, a move that threatens to upend the flow of everything from food to auto parts, building supplies between the two largest trading partners. Only 50 to 60% of U.S. truckers are vaccinated, according to an estimate from the American Trucking Associations. The rules will make thousands of drivers ineligible for cross-border shipments, exacerbating a shortage at a time when the transport industry is already strained. Manufacturers are warning they may be forced to slow production and will likely face higher costs from the snarling of a supply chain that depends on an open border for the movement of some $45 billion worth of goods every month, guys. Just think about how significant that is going to be. Canada is the top export market for 32 U.S. states, according to the Department of Commerce. Shipping will get distributed in both directions, as the U.S. is set to impose its own vaccine mandate on foreign travelers on January 22nd. So things are compiling. It's only going to be getting worse, guys. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government confirmed Thursday that truck drivers from Canada will be affected as well, forced into quarantine if they try to re-enter their own country and can't show proof of vaccination. Just imagine a free society thinking they're free, not being allowed back into their own country because they didn't take part in this experimental inoculation program, because they don't want to have anything to do with medical apartheid, because they are being segregated and pushed aside in this two-tier class society of the unvaxxed versus the vaxxed. This is just crazy that we're to this point, and now they're going to add to the supply chain issues by breaking it down on purpose. Guys, I hope you're paying attention to what the true agenda here is, because if you think this has anything to do with health, you're gravely mistaken. I'm sure you've been to a grocery store and seen empty shelves, and it's not going to get any better, said Sylvain Charbois, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University, and one of Canada's top experts on the food supply chain. And indeed, look at these numbers, guys. The U.S. exports $21 billion of food. Here's the biggest categories for agriculture exports to Canada. In just 2020, in the billions, we're talking about prepared food, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, snack food, non-alcoholic beverages, pork. Guys, This is going to affect you at the dinner table, hands down, no doubt about it. Canadians are going to be largely affected by this bottlenecking of the supply chain. And again, if we're not getting to the point where we're relying on ourselves, well, you're going to be completely left in the dust here and blown away by the fact that the government can just go ahead and do this while people essentially starve. As we see here, guys, dozens of Canadian trucks have blocked the highway near the U.S.-Manitoba international border to protest COVID-19 84 vaccine mandates. Videos shared on social media showed truck drivers carrying Canadian flags and holding a demonstration on Manitoba Highway 75, which connects the Emerson community in Manitoba with the U.S. city of Pembina in North Dakota. The demonstrations slowed down traffic on both sides and caused delays for vehicles both entering and leaving Canada. The drivers were protesting against Canada's new vaccine mandates for truck drivers, which came into force on Saturday. And here's a tweet from our good friend Lee at Lee Stewie on Twitter. Canadian truckers against cross-border vaccine mandates have started to block all lanes of traffic to and from the United States. The Canadian vaccine mandate came into effect January 15th, and the U.S. plans to have their similar mandate come into effect January 22nd. So again, this is all ramping up very, very quickly. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Manitoba said in a tweet that a demonstration involving a large number of vehicles was affecting traffic on the highway near the Emerson and port of entry. Both northbound and southbound lanes are affected, the tweet said. Please drive with caution if you are in the area and expect delays. And here's the thing, guys. This is a massive act of civil disobedience and a global showing of non-compliance coming from some people who have the power to actually make a difference. As I said, today's millennials don't even understand where their food comes from or what to do if they no longer have this food. You know what I mean? So now what we're going to see here as they continue to block this is more people are going to start to panic about this, and freak out about the fact that they don't know where their food is coming from and where it's going to come from. Again, which is why we have to have this self-sustainable garden moving forward, guys, because I do think things are going to get worse. As I said, we're not in a time where most people are coming from my generation where they understand how to survive on their own. If we see the supply chain crunch down for 24 hours to 48 hours, that could spell the beginning of the end for everyone, guys. So again, if you're not already at the point of having a self-sustainable garden, it's beyond crunch time. We're already seeing that they're starting to not allow people into the grocery stores in Australia if they're unvaccinated, guys. This, again, should be a huge red flag, because we've often seen Australia acting as a blueprint for the things that we, that eventually come, and Quebec seems to be a blueprint for the rest of Canadians. So it usually starts in Australia, and then it comes to Canada, maybe at Quebec, Alberta, or BC, and then eventually the rest of the country. And that's exactly what we're dealing with right now, guys. So absolutely mind-boggling that Justin Trudeau, would take it to this stage. And as I said, I think things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, which is why you need to work towards having your self-sustainable garden right now more than ever, to not be relying on the banks or the grocery stores or the supply chain even, or the supermarkets because of what we know is coming. We have to become completely self-reliant, self-sustainable moving forward, guys. That's my goal, because we're continuously being manipulated here to be afraid of this thing. I don't know if you guys saw, we're also being manipulated about, the adverse reactions to the vaccines, and they're trying to play down the myocarditis and the cardiac arrest, the flat-out heart attacks that people are having. I don't know if you've seen this one. Recent snowstorm led to an uptick in heart attacks overnight. Yeah, it's like I said on Twitter. Yeah, right. It was the shoveling that did it. Well, guys, this is the kind of propaganda that we are dealing with here in Canada. And now, as we're already seeing the supply chain crunch, the Prime Minister is going to compound that exponentially by shutting things down at the border, guys. Guys, this is, once again, as I said, not looking good. I don't mean to sound alarmist or anything, but if you're not at the stage, as I said, right now, of working towards having a self-sustainable garden where you're not relying on the supply chain or the supermarkets or the banks or the government, then you're already falling behind. And there's a lot of ways that you can take steps to make something like this a reality in your life. Getting out of debt is going to be crucial and key to starting that. And I know it's easier said than done for most, because it may require you lowering your standards of living in order to be able to own something outright where it's yours and you own it. That's what we need to focus on moving forward, guys, because this trucker protest and these vaccine mandates should have the red flags, sparking off in your mind, as it did for me, years ago. Well, we're already here. It's already beyond crunch time. The time to have your self-sustainable garden is now, guys. So just wanted to bring all this to your attention. Be wary of these coming bans on the unvaccinated at the grocery stores. And remember, these are the guys who have the power with their civil acts of disobedience here to actually affect change in the world, because they supply the food. Let's not forget that, if some other industries out there wanted to try to boycott the government, it might not matter so much. But because of the fact that these truckers have the ability to completely shut down the entire economy and essentially shut down the entire country, this should have the powers that ought not to be shaking in their boots right now. So we'll see where this civil act of disobedience goes. Hopefully the protest doesn't backfire and cause unnecessary inconvenience that would add to tightening the bottleneck of the supply chain. I hope they realize this needs to be done in a manner that doesn't inconvenience innocent people, but it still has to be done in a way that shows the global noncompliance to this vaccine mandate, that they're going to take a stand and say enough is enough. And hopefully this is the group that's going to be enough to push the government back. So let's support the truckers in this effort, guys. And once again, if you want to support my efforts to continue to counter all this propaganda, please don't forget to check us out at Subscribestar. Subscribestar.com/pressfortruth is where you, once again, can sign up for a monthly reoccurring contribution. You can become a PFT fan, a PFT supporter, a contributor, a member, a VIP, an investor, a superhero, an angel, or you can help us take over the MSM entirely with your pledge. Once again, guys, please check the links in the description below to find out how you can support me at subscribestar.com/pressfortruth. And that's all for today, my friends. I want to once again thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to click that thumbs up button, share this video with your friends and your family who need to see this the most, and stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.